Hello, good morning or good afternoon. Thank you for joining our BI reporting webinar that we're going to be running through over the next hour. Just going to give it another minute or two before we start, just to allow the people who are still logging into the webinar. So if you can bear with us just a minute or two to give people time. Okay, again, thank you for those who have joined. As like I said, we're just going to give another moment or two, and then we'll begin the webinar. All right, I think at this point we will begin the webinar, and just wanting to make sure we have time to go through the different elements that we'll be looking at. So again, welcome and thank you. Some of you I may well have spoken to or dealt with in the past. My name is Richard Burnett, and I am the main person on support, also worked in customer success. And I'll be doing most of the talking today. My colleague Jess Bird is also here assisting, and she'll be ready to jump in as needed, and she'll be monitoring questions that come through.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, so if you have any questions, you'll see on that side panel there that there's a place to pop them in. So if you do have questions as Richard's going through, we will take some time to stop and maybe point out some of the questions that are coming through. But yeah, please feel free to use that chat, and the chat will remain open for another 15 minutes once the webinar concludes, so we can continue answering your questions at that time.
All right, thank you. So I suspect that a number of you here are regular BI users, and so if you'll forgive me, some of the areas that we cover are ones that you know and are familiar to you, but nevertheless we hope that you will find something to take away from today's webinar. And as Jess said, as we're going through any questions, just pop them in the chat, and then we'll pause at different points to take the questions. So just wanted to look at sort of what we're aiming to sort of show today. So as listed in the information on this one, we're looking at the different filtering techniques that you can have within the function point to look at the data and to basically streamline the reports. We will be looking at calculated columns and how you can use those. And also we'll be looking at the different types of formats. I mentioned bar and line charts here as well, but also the pivot tables are available for those of you who have the premium version. And we'll take a little look at some of the way that you can use the reporting just to give some sort of staffing insight. And then lastly, not least at all, is we'll be looking at the BI cheat sheet guide. That will be going out to all of you at the end of the webinar. And when I say cheat sheet, it is a fairly large document. So we'll go through that just so that you can understand what's in that information. As I said, host, there's myself, and then Jess, who's assisting. So before we dive into the reports themselves, I just wanted to look at a couple of things which have a bearing on how the reports work. So within function point, within the BI reporting tool, there's sort of two levels of data. There's what we call or think of as the job level reports. And this is one that we'll be looking at, extremely useful reports, but as the blurb here says, bear in mind that when it's reporting for the numbers for, say, internal services or internal expenses or external expenses, it's giving you the number, the total number for that job, for either the time period or for the job as a whole, depending on how you're looking at it. But it doesn't give you the option to say what made up those external expenses. You can't drill down within that type of report. So within the reporting tool itself, we have a number of which are referred to as sort of service and expense level reports. This includes task reports and timesheet reports. In these, you can drill down into the underlying data that makes up for that example, the external expense, so you can see what external expenses there were on that particular job, which ones have been billed, etc. So as I said, an example would be the expenses report or the services report. So you're probably well aware of these differences, but it's always good just to point this out. And again, already mentioned the BI cheat sheet will provide information as to sort of what type of report the reports are and what data you can access. And the other thing I wanted to touch on briefly is just accessing the BI reports or reports in general. This is a permissions setting. This is governed by the permission settings. And there are a couple of different levels, just so that, again, you're probably aware, but if not. So you can simply say someone has access to reports or not at all. You can, within the permissions, limit certain types of reports. So you can say, I want to allow you to access certain type of reports, but not others. And then the last one is a bit more nuanced in the sense that you can have, person can have access to a report, but there may be certain data points such as cost data in that report that when they run it, if they don't have permission to view cost data, then it would simply, instead of having the information in that particular column, it would just have a note that they're not able to access or view that particular data. Within our help section, we do have a document manage permissions and permission sets that provides information on that. And as always, if you don't find your answer there or you have questions about that, then either support or your customer success manager will be able to help. So before we dive into actually building a report, what I wanted to look at is basically, so what filters are available? What can I do with the data in the reports? So the first set relates to the base BI reporting. So that's what's available if you don't have the premium version. And the second set here is exactly as it says, the features that come with the premium version. And so as we go through building the report, you'll see where we have like the base data filters, and then how once the report's built, you can update those filters, removing data points and adding data points, applying additional filters in the report, moving, renaming columns and sorting columns. Within the Premium BI, very importantly, you have the ability to save the reports that you create, and you can share those saved reports. You can also have access to add calculated columns. There are a lot of columns within many of the reports that sort of compare data sets to give you variances, but they don't cover all eventualities, and being able to add a calculated column can be very helpful at times. And then also with the BI Premium version, you get access to display the reports as a pivot table or bar or line chart. So before we dive into creating a report, I just wanted to check if anyone had any questions. Okay, I'm just going to move over.
Nothing's coming through the chat yet.
Okay, that's fine. All right, so let me just. Okay. All right, so just to confirm, people can see my screen with the dashboard?
Yep, you're good.
I'm good, okay. So I will state at this point, apologies for the data. This is my demo system. So some of the data might look a little bit odd, but I'll still be able to demonstrate all of the different elements that we were talking about. So without any further ado, I will actually, let me just.
Richard, is there anything we can give your dog to quiet him up? Some people are asking.
Let me quickly see if I can find out. Bear with me a moment. I didn't realize he was coming through quite so loud.
Yes, thank you.
All right, so bear with me, people. I will be back in just a moment.
Well, Richard's dealing with the dog situation. Just kind of wondering out there how many people are kind of brand new to Function Point and the reports, like, you know, if there's any specific kind of topics that you want to see highlighted in a session like this, by all means, just throw it into the question channel and then I can kind of keep track of that. Because essentially what we're going to be going through are some of the reports that we've built and all the different features that you can access with these reports. So if there is something specifically that maybe one of you are working on, trying to get going within your own agency, just shoot me a note within the question channel too, and I can make a note of that so that one of us can reach out and further assist you. If I had any good jokes, I would tell you. I only know bad dad jokes. If he has any jokes they want to type in the chat. I apologize for the delay, obviously, in getting to the information that you guys want to see. Let's hear one dad joke. Okay. Let me see here. What kind of, wait a minute. What kind of food do witches take to the beach? Sandwiches.
Are you going through?
Yeah, I'm trying to just fill the gaps, obviously.
I do apologize. I apologize. I hadn't realized the dog was quite so loud. The joys of a live broadcast. So my apologies all for that. Slight interlude. So now we shall dive into the reports.
Thanks, Richard.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience, everyone. Okay, so as I said, this is my demo. I have access to BI reports. I click on this and then just going to go through the steps and then create a report. So let me just change this to show a little bit more. So when you open up, it will always go on the most recent report folder. And this will show you here which ones you've looked at recently. See, if you've not looked at any reports before, this will be blank. The sections under here are designed to help sort of group reports that relate to certain elements, like invoice report. It shows me we have 2 reports for invoicing. Typically what I like to do is click on all, and this will list all of the standard reports, and go down, click more, go down, or I can just type in something up top and it will show me, in this case, all of the reports that are listing estimate in their heading. Save reports we will look at in a bit, but the standard reports are just what I always think of as the canned reports. So we are going to click on the estimate, actual and invoice dollars by company, campaign and job, which is a useful report, again, at that job level. So when I click on it, it opens up define your data. So we have a little blurb telling you what the report can be used for. And then we have a number of different fields that we can fill. So we could search by company, campaign, particular job. In this case, what I'm wanting to create is an account executive report. But we could look at the type of job. So you could just pull up certain types of jobs. I'm going to leave job status blank. Again, you could say, I just want to look at cancelled jobs. So I'd be curious as to sort of how many of those we had over the year and what the details were on that. Campaign, work type. Then we get into the date fields. So what we have here is an activity date. Sometimes it'll just say data date, but what this is it's looking at all of the activity that's taken place on the job within dates. So that would be timesheets logged, expenses logged, invoices sent out within that particular date. And if we scroll down a bit, we can see that we have estimate date, estimate approval date. And so this is saying basically show me all of jobs that had an estimate approval date between these dates, or an estimate creation date or an estimate delivery date, which would be the job delivery date. And then we have job open, job closed. So in here, we're doing Beth, and we'll say that we want to look at job open. Now we have at the moment, we haven't selected anything. I could just put in and type here, but if you click the drop arrow, you have a number of different options. Between is giving you between this date and that date. Rolling range will give you the option to say basically anything that has been opened in this calendar year. And then I click on, so basically I've said I want to look at Beth's jobs that have been opened in this calendar year. As an alternative to this, what I could do is I could go up to activity date and say, actually, instead, let me show every job that's had activity in the current year. And with this one here, I would just then get rid of this one. Bear with me a second. Okay, so now we click continue. Oops. Here we go. So what I want to do is empty. So now we click continue. So this says now pick your visualization. So if I have premium, I have all of these to choose from. If you're on the basic one, they'll still show, but they'll have a little gold star against them, which indicates that they're not available. But generally speaking, regardless of whether you've got access to these or not, it's normally best just to start with the table report. So we'll build that. Now we have the first chance to remove a few items from the list. So what we see here, if it's dark blue, then that means that we can remove at least some of the items from here. Like I could move this line here, but if it's light blue, then it's basically it's part of the underlying data. I can't remove that particular point. So I know, for instance, for sure, I'm not going to need Office, but otherwise I'll leave these alone as is, and I'll just click confirm. Oh, hang on a second. I know what's happened here. I've tried to select 2 data points. So let's do that again. So we want to go to AE, and then we want to just to do the activity date, rolling range, current calendar year. And there we don't want Office for sure, we know we don't want. And then that produces report. So this is all of the jobs in the current year that have had activity on, that have the account executive of Beth. Information, company name, if it had a campaign it was associated with, that will be here. We can see job status. There's a few things we probably don't need here. So if we go through, probably don't need lead staff, etc. So as you can see, there's quite a lot of data before we get to the actual number part of the system here. So let's say there are a few things that I want to get rid of here, a few columns that I want to get rid of. I click on the show hide, and then I'm going to go through some of these and we'll see what we've got that we don't need. So in actuals, we'll say that's fine. Billable, that's good. Campaign, we don't need budget or status, we'll just have campaign name. Company is good. Let's have a look. So I don't need to show the lead contact. Let's say we don't need the PO in this particular instance. I do want the delivery date, but I don't need to see the work type. And then here, that's fine. Invoiced, job. I don't want the key description. I do want the job status though. And then the last one is other, where the calculation columns come in. So I'm going to get rid of a number of these. So let's get rid of that one. I'm just going to get rid of the variances here. Again, this is just for demonstration. You may decide if you're using this report that you want to keep some of these in. So once I've done that, I click confirm. And now you can see that it is definitely a shorter list. We've got rid of a number of the data points that we don't want. Now, that's fine, but suppose I want to add a column. So instead of going here, we click add columns and add new column. Now, one thing that this doesn't show is the breakdown between the internal expense and external expense. So say that I do have internal expenses. Say I support clients at various fairs and conventions, and I supply the material from my stock for, these stands. So that would be an internal expense that I want to track. So I could click through these, but the easiest way is to start typing, and it brings up the different data points that are available for this report that are internal expenses. So I'm just going to add one. I click on it. I could add multiple ones. It shows up here once I've got the ones I want. If I did one by mistake, I just click this to remove it. But I'm happy with this, so I click confirm. It tells me this has been added to the table. So now it always adds way over here. So there's a couple of things that we need to do this one. So the title is way too long. So I want to try and condense it down. So with all of these here, if I click on the 3 dots, it gives me the option to rename. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do estimated internal expense. And then I click enter. It's now renamed that. But this is totally in the wrong location. So I click and I drag it and I want it to go here. And then I would do the same for the external expense. Within this base report, the expenses actually combines both internal and external into one number. And so that is in essence how you do add columns. You can move columns, you can rename them. Another example here, this strange naming convention here, I'm going to rename this. So I'm just going to go across IS, enter, makes it a lot tidier. And while we're talking about looking at columns and that, one thing you can do is you can sort. So we see we've got delivery dates here. So I'm just going to click and sort from low to high. So now you can see actually a number of these jobs don't have a delivery date entered. That's certainly something that you normally would have, because that transfers through to the job in terms of what your target date is for completing the work on this one. If I sort the other way, then it's sorting here. And then if I just click again, it removes the filter back to the original data.
Richard, can you show us how to like convert this into like a pivot table or a bar graph?
I certainly will be able to do so, yes. Yeah. So we'll do that now. So this is the table format. So again, I have premium version. So I have the ability to click on pivot grid and it brings up this screen here. And it's asking me for rows, columns, and data. So for this one here, I know that I want the company name and it's offering me either choice of rows or columns. I'm going to say row and then campaign. Again, I've got all these data points, but I want the campaign name and I want this in a row. And then we have job. Again, different data points. Oops, there we go. But I want the job in a row. But now what I want to do is to look at the estimate cost. So I want to look at the total estimate cost. And this is only going to offer me data. Similarly, if I look at actuals, it can give me total, actual, and again, data. And the last piece here, I can say total invoiced amount, add to data. So now I've got information in the rows, information in data. When I click confirm, this is what it gives me here, is it's telling me this is what was estimated, this is what the actual is, this is invoiced amount. As I said, if the numbers look a bit funny, I apologize for that. So, but what this is showing me is just for the companies. So if I were to say, take Great Atlantic, if I click on that, we're now going to look at it from a project or campaign level. So we've got jobs that we know are not related to a campaign and jobs that are. So if I click here, I can see we have 2 jobs under this campaign, and then we've got the numbers for that. If I click here, I can see that there were 2 jobs outside of the campaign. And again, this is telling me for each of those jobs, we've got estimate, actual, and invoiced. The nice thing about the pivot is that it is totaling up as well, which is something the table doesn't do. So we've got for the corporate branding, it's given me totals here as well as the individual amounts here. So with this report, we can't drill down further than the job. And if I added the internal services, internal expenses, external expenses, we could bring those data points in here. But that's as low down as I could get. One of the things I do like about the pivot table is, suppose I want to look at it from job first. So now we have, I'm looking at it from each individual job. And if I click on a job, then it tells me this was under the McDonald and Company. And so we have that ability to, depending on sort of, again, what you're using the pivot table for, but you can easily rearrange the columns here, which means within the one pivot table, you can potentially get a couple of different views of the data. Anyone have any questions about pivot tables before I go on to?
Let's just go through the saving and sharing, and then we can look at the staff utilization report, and then that should take us to the 45.
Right. Okay. So I'm just going to quickly, so I'm going to go back to table. One of the nice things about here as well is while you're in it, it's retained the pivot grid that you set up. So I'm just going to go to the bar graph. And in here, column, or the x-axis is sort of what you're looking at. Is it jobs? Is it companies? Is it staff, etc., depending on what it is that you're looking at. So we're going to say this is going to be the job. And then the y-axis is the data. So in this case, we want to keep it, again, we are looking at estimated cost. And then we're going to add total actuals. Say we just want to look at those. So we can look at those. There's a lot of data here with the different number of jobs here. And as you can see, some of them really don't have much. But this is a visual way of just, without having to look at the numbers, we can see that this particular web redesign job, the actuals are way overestimated. Similarly here, we're slightly over for these ones. We know we're pretty much on par. Estimate is slightly over. And again, you can define this down further. You can say, I just want to look at closed jobs so that you can sort of see what's going on there. But that is in essence, and you tend to keep the data very simplified, but it is a good visual way of looking at things without having to sort of drill into the numbers. So I'm going to go back to the table, because one thing I do want to do is to add a column, a calculated column here. So if you'll bear with me a second. Okay, so as I said, it is a premium version only, and I apologize if I sound like I'm selling BI Premium, but it has some useful additions. So I'm going to click Add Columns, and then I'm going to add a calculated column. And this one, I'm just going to call this budget versus actuals. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show actual total, and I'm going to divide it by the estimate, which is our budget. Oops. Estimate total billable, and it's going to be shown as a percentage. So I've basically selected one, put the operator in, selected the second one, I've named it, I've decided this one rather than a number amount, I want to show this as a percentage. And then I click confirm. And it now has added it again, it's added it right over on this side. So we can see here the title I gave it, this is what it's calculating. If I needed to look at the formula, I just click on this and it opens up if I needed to amend the formula. And again, and what this particular one is showing is that it is, again, we've got the numbers in here, but this one is showing me very sort of clearly and easily sort of, okay, so we're over budget on these. We're fine on the other ones. And if I just go over a little bit more, I put it here so we can see this one closed and it was over budget. This one's invoiced out, which is the last invoice, we're over budget. These ones are open, so depending on the estimate delivery date, you know, we're still tracking actuals and expenses on these. So one thing, again, just to show you sort of the different options here. So say I just wanted to show just jobs where the budget number has exceeded 100%. As well as the main filter, which you can always go back to at any time and adjust here, we also have this filter symbol here. So if I click on that, it opens up all of the different options that we have. And now if I go down to budget versus actual, I click on the little filter symbol here, it opens up this, let's do it again. So I want to say that basically is greater than, and in this case, I'm going to put 100 for 100%, and I click confirm. And now it only shows me the jobs that have exceeded the budget. So again, it's a way that you can sort of just do the extra little bit of filter within the report itself without changing the overall report. If I need to remove it, I just click on it again, go down here, and I just say clear, confirm, and everything's restored. So as Jess mentioned, we're looking at saving the report now. So I've done a lot of work to build the report. And one of the advantages, again, of the premium side is that I can save this report so I don't have to rebuild it again later. Just click on that to remove that. So to save a report, I just simply click Save As. We've got the report description, we've got the report name. I do need to give it a unique name. So we'll just call this one Beth C. And we'll just save. And now this report has been saved. So if I go back to the report section, we'll just say save again. And again, we see the normal one, we've got the standard report ones that we've looked at, click on all to show all of them. Or I can click on save report. So this is the most recent one I've touched again. So Beth C. So this has been saved. To open it is a matter of clicking on this. If I've set it up correctly, I don't really need to make any changes here, but I always can do so. Then I click continue and then click build the report, and it brings it back. There's the budget column that we added, etc. Now, one of the things with the report itself, with the saved reports and with, say, the premium, is say this is one that I want to share with Beth. So rather than her building the report, I can click on share and then I can send it to Beth. And a copy of this report will appear in her saved reports. The other advantage of having something like this, if I build a report for the AEs to sort of track what's happening with their particular jobs, I can go into this here and I can say, I don't want this for Beth. I actually want this for David. And I click apply. And I'm going to save as, and this is now David R. I click save. And now when I go back to my reports, if I look on here, I have exactly the same report, but now just looking at the data from the account executive David's point of view. So, okay, so one last thing I wanted to go and look at, just again with sort of showing how the bar charts, etc., can work. I'm going to look at standard reports here. So I'm just going to look at the staff utilization report. And so again, we can, tells you what the report's about. You can say, okay, I only want active staff, or in this case, I'll just leave it blank. Date parameter, you wouldn't typically use this. You could use it for last week, last month, whatever it may be. And this one, because I know that it's, as I said, it's my demo, to make sure that I have got some data to show, I just wanted to, I have to go all the way back to June 30th, click, it's a table. I'm just going to leave these as is, and then this gives me this report. So the group, the staff. The key one here that is the most important one is percentage to target utilization. This is basically saying how many billed hours did they log compared to what the target they had, the target number of hours. So we can have it here, and we have all of this data here. Again, there's a lot of information in here. But if you want to keep it simple, we can say, okay, let's do a bar chart. Again, this is, it's not job. In this case, we're looking at staff. And here we're going to say, you know what, we just want to show one thing. And that is the, oh, I forgot which one it was now. Okay. Percentage to target utilization. And so again, it's the information is in the table, but this one here is just a visual. So you can see that very few people actually within my test environment met their utilization target. And this is not looking at their sort of total hours that they're working. This is looking at, okay, so they only expect to do 75% of their time is billable. It's looking at, did they achieve 100% of that 75% as it were. And so again, it's, in terms of who the audience is and how you're looking at it, it's a way that you can very easily just show sort of the simple data points in a visual format. If my data had particular sort of, say for instance, David Test, I'd had time logged for him over a number of months, I could run the staff utilization report just looking at David, and then within this I could use a line graph to go and just compare, or a bar chart just to see how he goes month to month in terms of hitting his target. And again, with all of these, if I go back to the table, straight back, and if I had saved, if I'd created a bar chart, it would save that. And the same with the save reports. If I've created a bar chart, if I created a pivot table as well as the basic table, those will be saved, and you can sort of switch between them as well. Okay, I've done a lot of talking. Just curious if there have been any questions coming in, because I know that we are, I think we're making good time.
Yeah, there's been a few, like, just questions about like premium BI features versus not. Talking about specific to PTO, so sick time, vacation, so from the utilization calculation. So those are still kind of factored in, but you can eliminate those services, and if you have more than one non-billable time tracking job, you can eliminate those from the report. So it's only focusing on the ones that are billable jobs.
Yeah, as I said, I've taken this sort of as is, but you're right. I mean, because what this is looking at in this particular one, as I said, this is the key figure, and what that is looking at is, we know this is telling you what billable time target you've set for the different individuals. 80%, 72, these ones they're expected to do 100% billable, which is not really realistic, but that's the way it is. And then this capacity tells me basically how many hours they had for this month. And to my colleague Jess's point, if you're using the work calendar and you're using PTO through that, then what will happen there is that will reduce the number of days in that particular month. Say they had a week off, then this number would take that into account, which also would reflect in the target hours. And then the data here is hours worked, total. What you're looking at, the key one is total billable. And then we have external and internal billable. That's whether there are instances with the internal billable, there are some agencies and clients who will say they're redoing their own website. They do want to track that as billable time rather than internal time, which might normally be training, etc. So, and then we have the non-billable time, which is sort of the admin and all the other tasks that aren't contributing directly to a particular job. And then we go through here again, we've got sort of percentages looking at those different combinations. But yeah, this one is telling you basically billable hours against their target.
And really, Richard kind of commented on this at the beginning of the session. Sometimes people find it confusing to determine what report they want to start with. So the BIR reference guide is accessible on our Help Center page. So we should maybe send over a link to those people who are interested in looking at it. It's very robust, but it really does give you a good idea. Yeah, even Richard, if you can demonstrate how to navigate there in the Help
Like
Center.
I said, I mean, we call it a cheat sheet. It's actually 84 pages long.
Yeah.
So the way that it works, and it is so you can sort of, I use like Control F to search here, but it's, say we'll look at that staff utilization report. The way that it's laid out is by report. It gives you that summary. There are notes and tips for each report, just to sort of where, sort of advice on using it and getting the best from it. It's looking at what the data source are and what the initial data filters are. And then for each report, oops, there we go. It tells you a definition of what the different columns are that you're looking at. So if you're looking at a column and you're like, I'm not quite sure what that represents, this will tell you. Where it particularly comes into play, this is sort of further definition of the data here, is it lists the possible columns that you can add to a report. And so here you can add roles. These are all the different staff data points you can add, and these are the different utilizations. So some of these will be in the report, but many of these won't. And so this is giving you a list of what you can do. So something like this, what I do is probably Control F and let me think what would be I want to know where I can find the work date. So it is going to pull up some of these, but then it tells me that the task data report, I can pull up the actual work date. Same with the timesheet data report. So you can use that if you're like, okay, so I would really want to get this information into a report. Which reports give me the option to do so? And this will very quickly sort of run through and let you know where that data point is available. So as I said, it is quite complex. As you can see, timesheet data report has a lot of possible data points that you can pull into the report. Obviously, only a small majority of these are actually in the report at the moment, but there's a lot of flexibility here. And so, as Jess said, this is something that we will be sending out to you. I mean, it's not widely available. We don't sort of hide it, but it's something that is good to have on hand when you're going through the reports. And for myself, and I think Jess, you're probably the same. we use this to say, okay, I need to look at this particular type of data. What are the best reports? So rather than plowing through reports and going, no, this isn't the one, this isn't the one, this shortcuts that process for you.
Yeah, exactly. And like 45-minute session is really not enough to get deep diving into a lot of report requirements. So for those of you who know who your customer success manager is, please reach out to them directly if you've got specific reporting questions. Otherwise, you're always welcome to message the support team, and they can connect you with somebody to assist you further. If you do have specific questions around the cost, I know a few of you guys have been asking me about that in the system, so I'll make sure to get back to you guys with what the cost would be to apply the premium BI. And then at that point as well, then you could probably connect with your customer success manager to do a kind of walkthrough and help you set up some of those initial reports. A lot of them are already kind of baked into the system, so it's really just a matter of pulling the information together. But yeah, thank you very much, Richard. This has been insightful. Thank you for everybody.
Yes.
For all the great questions. And for those of you who are on this call, we will make sure to send out an email with the link to that BIR reference guide. Okay,
yes.
so for those of you asking a question.
Yeah, and again, as Jess says, if you have sort of questions, then definitely follow up with us. But hopefully today's session has sort of really shown you the different options that you can in terms of filtering and moving columns around, renaming, especially the adding calculated columns, and just really showing you sort of how you can customize and just hone those reports down to hone in onto the sort of data that you actually want to go and see.
Awesome. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Like I said, if you've got any questions or concerns, reach out directly to your customer success manager or the support queue, and a copy of this recording will be available shortly. And then if anybody needs anything else, you know where to find us. So thanks again for taking time out of your day. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned as well, Jess, that we'll keep the lines open for the next 15 minutes if there's any additional questions that come in.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Again, thank you all for your time, and hopefully, like I said at the beginning, I'm hoping that even if you use BI reports to a fair degree, that there's something here that you took away from today's webinar.